Welcome to episode 1 of Mommy Mogul Boss podcast. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how to know when to say when. How to know when it's time for you to step out on faith, to start that business, and to put all those ideas and dreams that you've been thinking about all these years into action. So first things first, I'm going to dive into a timeline of my life and share a little bit about my experience as a business owner, my introduction to entrepreneurship, and what helped me to know when it was time for me to say when. And it was in 2011. I was in my second year of college studying business at University of Houston downtown. And at this time, I had no desire in my heart to start my own business. I didn't even know that I would be starting my own business a year from that date. But something happened during that time. There was a pivotal moment in my life where it was a huge wake-up call. And I knew then, in that moment, I just felt in my heart that this is the time for me to step out on faith. And so one day I went to work. I did work study there, and I worked at the library. And I got called into my boss's office, and I was having some difficulty with my oldest at the time. She was my only child, actually. And we were having some difficulty in school. And so I was having to do a lot of testing and a lot of meetings with teachers and counselors and everything. And so I took off quite a few days during this time. And she called me into the office, and that day I was fired. And I didn't have a backup plan. I think I was making maybe $6 or $7 an hour at that time during work study. So I didn't have pretty much any money at all saved up, and so I decided that in that moment it was time for me to get to work. So prior to this time, God had shown me a vision for my talent and what I could do potentially with my talent, but at the time I didn't have the faith to pursue that vision. And so I'm going to get back to that later on in this podcast. But I want to touch bases and mention the fact that sometimes you can have the vision, but you don't have a plan for the vision, or you don't have clarity for that vision. So that is where I was in that moment. Although I had foreseen my potential, I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how to start, and I didn't have anyone to go to for advice or for help. And so that is when all of my fears and my anxiety, it all had to go out the window. And I started to post on Facebook different hairstyles that I would try on myself, and family members and friends who would let me do their hair. I started posting on Facebook, and I would ask people if they wanted their hair done for free. And so for the first few weeks, or maybe even the first few months, I drove around Houston, Texas with my daughter with me at this time. And we drove around Houston, Texas, and I did hair for free. And that is how I built my portfolio, because I did not have a clientele. I didn't have anything but my God-given talent. And a little history about me doing hair. I had been doing hair since I was 9. I did my grandmother's hair, my family members' hair, my friends' hair, my cousins' hair, everybody's hair. But when people would ask me if I did hair, I would tell them no. And so sometimes I would just do their hair out of courtesy or just to learn different techniques and things. But it wasn't anything I took seriously. It wasn't anything that I thought would be worth me earning any money at this time. And so that's part of the reason why I worked so long and so much and so hard for free, because there was no faith behind talent. And so I'm going to go over a few podcast PowerPoints that I want you all to remember and to write this information down, because if you're struggling with this same thing that I was going through at that time, I have some amazing words of encouragement that I hope can inspire you to take whatever gifts or talent or purpose that you have seriously, because that is definitely going to be your introduction to entrepreneurship and starting your own business. And so fast forward to 2012. This is the next year after I had the experience with my work study position. I actually decided that it was time for me to start charging. And so I wasn't charging my worth, but I was charging just enough to where I thought that people would be comfortable paying this price, and to have enough gas to put in the car, and to have enough to get me and my daughter something to eat. So my starting price to drive to my client, because I was a mobile hairstylist, was $35. Sometimes I would work for 5 hours. Sometimes I would work for 7 hours. And I can't even begin to tell you how much I was earning per hour for most of the work that I did. But that is what started me and catapulted my business, and kind of got my feet wet with entrepreneurship. And so between the years of 2012 and 2018,